Alright guys, welcome to this tutorial on how to create fire. There's a couple of things you'll need. The first thing you'll need is some form of wrappers, and they'll make the main crackly sounds. Now you want to, what the plan is to layer these sounds on top of each other. So you'll need like multiple wrappers. The first wrapper I used was a sort of foil cake bar wrapper, and that had a nice like sharp crackle to it. And the second thing I used was like a sandwich bag. And that, it wasn't as sharp sounding, but it did have a lot more kind of like ruffle and noise to it. Now you need something to record these on, so I'm using just a handheld Tascam DR40. It's a condenser mic, so it's got really good sound quality to it, and I recommend you use a condenser of some sort. Doesn't necessarily have to be a handheld though. So you just want to kind of ruffle the materials in front of the mic in kind of various intensities and stuff, so it's not like one sound, and record them into your digital audio workstation. Okay, so once you've got your sounds, these were my sounds here. So I've got my cellophane sandwich bag. If I just solo that, let's have a listen, see what it's like. Okay, so that's, you can already hear the kind of similarities to kind of fire. It's a very busy sound. You can see on the audio file compared to like the foil wrapper, actually it's a lot more busy in here, for instance. Let's see what the foil wrapper sounds like. Okay, so that's a much like sharper and cracklier sound. Now let's see what they both sound like together. Okay, so it's all overall, it's very busy and it's quite messy. Most of that I think is due to the fact that the cellophane bag itself is a really like full sounding thing. What I have discovered is that you should really put the kind of busier sounds further down level wise, so they kind of go underneath the more defined sounds that should sit at the front. So if I leave the foil wrapper where it is and I put the bag down a fair amount. So instead of it sounding really busy, it now sounds like it's got some noise in the undertone, and it's also got the definition from the foil wrapper, and it all together sounds much more cleaner and natural. Okay, so you've got your recorded wrapper sounds. The next thing you want is really some underlying noise, and this can be accomplished on pretty much any synthesizer as far as I'm aware. Going back to the tutorial I did on wind, we're going to use a very similar kind of technique with the noise, using LFO and randomizer. So if you open up your synth, this is what I'm using, hybrid. And you want to get rid of the actual synth itself. So turn the level down, there's nothing, turn the noise up. And now I'm just getting noise. Now what you want to do is, it's mainly the cutoff filter, right? So bring it down to a level that sounds like it would be kind of underlying noise in the fire. So a lot of like the highs are going to be removed. So around there, you do want it to be quite subtle. And what we want to do is just modulate, so it animates a bit. We want to modulate the cutoff filter back and forth. Now we don't want to modulate it with just a sine wave, because then it's on a perfect clock and it doesn't sound natural. We want to use a random wave, so it's just all over the place, it's doing anything. And what you want to do is then link your cutoff filter to that LFO that has got the randomizer on it. And using... basically, you don't want the LFO to be too intense. Like, I could make it quite intense. Like, you can hear it as being random, but you want it to just kind of, like, the fluctuations to be quite subtle. Okay, so I'm going to put it there. It is really subtle. This is one I actually made before for it, so I'll just use this. All I did was record what I had just done there into an audio track, and boom, it's there. So let's listen to what I've got there. Pretty much exactly the same thing. So I can get rid of my synth now. Okay, so all in all together with that added, sounds pretty nice. Try adjusting some things. Maybe a bit too much noise. One thing to consider is the proximity effect, and what that means is the closer you get to something, the louder the low end is, basically, or the more intense the low end is. So if you want something to seem closer, just increase the low end. So with that sitting there, with the noise sitting there, it seems like it's too close. I'm too close to kind of like the source rumble of the fire, and it doesn't sound right to me, so I'm gonna bring it down. Now there's one last thing that I think is really important to add, and that's a bit of reverb. Even if the fire's outside, it just adds, like, if you put a narrow mono reverb on it, it just adds this character that makes it sound much more natural. So I've got a reverb set up here already, it's just muted. Let's have a look at this, and it's a mono reverb. Where is the setting? Move out of the way. No, don't do that. There we go. Actually, you know what? Go away. Much better. I've made it kind of like narrow the space and stuff. It's quite damp. It's not like a proper reverb to kind of emulate a room. And you can see I've got different amounts of reverb going. So for the noise, for example, I'm sending only a small amount, because I don't want that to be too reverberant. The crackles, on the other hand, I've got a lot more going. It just sounded right to me. I sat and fiddled about with them for about 5 minutes. So what you want to kind of do is like set up a reverb and fiddle about with like different settings. And that's without the reverb. And now with the reverb. I think all in all that sounds really, really nice. And while I've recorded all these tracks in stereo, I've actually moved the tracks to mono because the fire is in front of us. It just seemed like it made a bit more sense having it as mono. But you can experiment with that as well. So from here, you could also try other adding more layers of like crackling and things. If you want to do a more intense fire, that would definitely be a good idea. Try and get some different qualities of sounds, and make the low end noise much more intense as well. So those are some things to experiment with. Okay, I think I've covered everything I need to cover. Yeah, so wrappers, noise, bit of reverb, push D. See you later.